Hello, everybody watching. I'm Andrei Rus. I am one of the co-directors, artistic directors of One World Romania International Documentary and Human Rights Film Festival. It's a festival that takes place each year in Bucharest, and I was invited by Magda Stroie, director of Romanian Cultural Institute in London, to select a couple of documentaries from the past 20 years, Romanian documentaries made in Romania or related to Romanian issues from the past 20 years that I considered relevant. So the program that you just watched this month and it was selected by me, and I was interested in making this selection in including of course, documentaries and films that I admire, but I am very much interested in very specific or particular, let's say, approaches to cinema and to the topics that filmmakers I don't know, are interested at some point in time. So I think the greatest part of the selection contained very particular and very, I don't know, personal sometimes perspectives on cinema. And of course, it included both filmmakers that are already internationally acclaimed and well-known, and filmmakers who are in the beginning. Some of them, like, I don't know, Mara Trifu or Laura Căpățână-Juler, didn't make a film in a while. So I was hoping that this kind of selection maybe might also, I don't know, inspire them to continue, because I think they are very talented. But anyway, I am very happy that today I am here moderating a discussion with 4 of the filmmakers whose films were selected in this program, and I will briefly introduce them. I will start with Adina Pintilie. Of course, Adina is well known also in Great Britain because her first feature, Touch Me Not, won a very, very important distinctions in different festivals. And of course, the first and probably the most important was the Golden Bear in Berlin, I think 3 years ago. But of course, in the program, you were also able to watch another of her films, a film that I admire and love very much. It's a medium-length film that was made by her a couple of years ago in a workshop called Aristoteles, which I think is a very, or it used to be for the past decades, a very important program for Eastern European filmmakers in developing, I don't know, their styles and their manners of approaching reality. And I hope in our conversation we will also be able to talk a little bit about what this meant for Adina in the beginnings, let's say. So thank you, Adina, for being with us, and I can't wait to have the pleasure of discussing with you. Vanina Vinial, she's of course my colleague from One World Romania. We in the past years we worked together for defining the selection and the direction of the festival in artistic ways. But Vanina is first and foremost, I think, a filmmaker, and she's not Romanian. I mean, she's not a Romanian citizen. She's a French citizen, but she, in the past decades, she was very much involved in different projects and I don't know, interested in Romanian issues. And I think this is very visible in 2 of her films. I think her 2 feature films that she already released. One of them, the second feature film of hers, was screened in this program. Après le silence, I don't know in French, I don't remember exactly in French, but it's, can you help me with the long part in French?
Ce qui n'est pas dit n'existe pas, and it's
yeah.
What is not said, what is unsaid doesn't exist, it's a question.
Doesn't exist. So I was interested in including Vanina in this panel or in this discussion because, of course, she's a little bit, she's not the typical filmmaker doing films about Romanian issues because she lives, or she used to live abroad most of the time. Now she shares her time between France and Romania. So thank you, Vanina, for being with us. Then Radu Jude, of course, well-known filmmaker. We dedicated a small retrospective of his documentaries in this program. I think it contained 3 features and 1 short film. Radu is well known for a couple of years now. Of course, this year he also won a Golden Bear in Berlin, but many of his films were screened in I don't know, in festivals in also in Great Britain. If I'm not mistaken, most of your films, Radu, were screened in London in BFI. Or many of your films.
Yes, most of them, I think.
Also, some of the films that were included here. I think maybe from the films that we selected, maybe one of your new films is probably not so much seen abroad so far because of the pandemic, and I'm talking about The Exit of the Trains. I don't know if it was maybe some of the first times that it was available in Great Britain for view, so I'm happy about that. But of course, we also included The Dead Country and Typographic Majuscul, and also a short film, the 2 executions of the
Marshall.
So thank you, Radu, for being with us. And the 4th and last guest of today is Bahoi. And Bahoi is not, let's say, a conventional filmmaker in a way, because his videos are not usually screened in festivals or in programs dedicated to documentaries, because he mostly worked or did videos for YouTube. So he's what we would call vlogger. And in Romania, some of his videos, some of his films were very popular, like millions of people watch them. I have to say that I have friends who are actors or who are filmmakers, but with none of them, when I walk the streets of Bucharest, it happens the same as it happens to me when I'm with Bahoi. I mean, a lot of people stop and ask him for photos, for, I don't know, and they are pretty excited, like they would see a superstar. So I think it was very important for me to include also his videos or his films, let's say, in this program, and it's the first time that they are screened with subtitles outside of Romania. Also because, of course, first of all, because I admire them very much, but also because I think it's a, let's say, a development of the media that made possible this kind of phenomenon, let's say. And of course, not all of Bahoi's films are related to I don't know, to treating reality, because he also many times he films himself and while doing freestyle or while talking to the camera, like in a more usual or conventional vlogging tradition. But I selected in this festival some of the films in which he treats a very specific reality of his hometown, a small village near Constanța, and I think with a lot of warmth and humor. But we will have time to discuss this more. So thank you, Bahoi, for being with us. So what I would propose that I start a little bit by talking with each of you about the films that we screened in the program, and I will start with Adina, like in the order that I introduced you, if it's okay for you. So Adina, I am. I would like I'm sure that Touch Me Not, which is the last film screened in this program, and I think it's the only film that will be screened, in a cinema, so it will have a physical screening, not online screening. It's more known, well known, maybe in Great Britain, but I'm not sure about Nu te supăra dar, about what is the English official title?
Don't Get Me Wrong.
Don't Get Me Wrong, which is a film that you did, or you developed in this program in Aristoteles that I was introducing briefly before. But before that, you are also a student in the UNATC, in the Film University of Bucharest. And I would say that your filmmaking style, I don't know, it's already obvious, or it has some particularities starting from the films that you made in the university. But Don't Get Me Wrong also has this, let's say, touch of yours that it's visible in many aspects, also in Touch Me Not. So I would like to ask you a little bit, because I think you are a very, I don't know, your way of dealing with reality in cinematographic terms, let's say, I think is, even if you like it or not, as a spectator, it's something very specific, especially when we consider it in the, I don't know, Romanian tradition of making films, or in Romanian context, contemporary cinematographic context. So I would like to start by asking you a little bit about this development of your approach to cinema. If you would go a little bit back in time, what would be the most, I don't know, if you could point some aspects or some, I don't know, maybe filmmakers, or maybe, I don't know, programs like Aristoteles, if there were some things that you think, I forgot to say that you were also for some years curating and coordinating the artistic aspects of a very interesting and important film festival in Bucharest, which is dedicated to experimental films and filmmaking. So probably, I don't know, maybe also this period maybe, I don't know, made you, I don't know how to say, exposed you to some, I don't know, manners of making cinema in a different way. So if we could start from this, if it's comfortable for you, with tracking some important influences, let's say, if I can say that.
This is a dangerous question. How much time do we have?
I will.
Is Cynthia also joining? Cynthia
unfortunately is not able to join us anymore. I forgot to say.
Okay. So we are 4 people. To be democratic, we have how much?
You have, for this question, you have.
No. How much time we have altogether? It's 1 hour and a half.
1 hour and a half, yeah, maximum. Yeah.
1 hour and a half divided by 4.
Means,
so it's 20-something minutes. And how many questions you want per person?
I give you 10 minutes. Adina, I give you 10 minutes from me if you want.
10 minutes, I think, is too much, I'm afraid. I should keep it much shorter, I guess. Now, I mean, I'm trying to figure out now, first of all, I was intrigued by your decision to introduce Touch Me Not in a documentary program, because, you know, our extensive debates on, I mean, I'm usually resistant to put any label on what I am trying to do. But I guess since I'm working with reality, sometimes with the so-called tools of fiction, I mean, I'm resistant to the label of documentary, but I understand why you introduced it here. And I think introducing a film like this in a documentary program raises interesting questions, which are exactly the key questions that I struggled with along this, let's call it development or search for language, because since as you know, the Romanian Film School has quite a traditional approach to what filmmaking is. And it has been quite a challenge to find, you know, to really legitimize, not to find my voice, to basically legitimize my approach in this landscape. And I am thinking, like, to stick to 7 minutes, I'm thinking maybe what could be also interesting for the younger colleagues, or for the students that I'm working with now, because you got me in this moment when I supposedly started to teach, but I have a huge resistance to the notion of me teaching someone else something, because I think it's such an arrogant position. But then I thought, okay, I can share experience. So if I look at teaching as shared experience, I can do that. So maybe the steps that I've been through can be inspiring and can give some courage to my younger colleagues. So it's basically, I come from a classical fiction background, and I just couldn't, in the film school, Andrei, because you went through the same thing, the obsession about the script, the 3-act structure, the dramaturgy, and in the directing stage of a project is this emphasis on you have to know exactly what you have to do, like a good director, a professional director, always know what he or she has to do, needs to have a plan, you need to, prepare everything in advance carefully, and then you kind of give this sense that you are in control and you know everything, and you execute something that you imagined. So this idea of cinema that I was trained in the beginning with, it was foreign to me, because like for me, what's interesting about cinema, it's using it, working with it as a tool to explore reality, to discover things, to develop things in the process. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that the other kind of approach to cinema is not valid, and amazing films are coming from the traditional fictional approach. But there are also other ways. And this is, for example, a very important step on this. I mean, it was the film school, because initially in the film school, I had this military-like training where I was, because you remember that we worked on film, 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter, and we had a very limited amount of film. So by that time, we really needed to know precisely what we are going to shoot, because we didn't have enough material. So it was a good discipline. But afterwards, this discipline became very soon alienating. Luckily, I had some teachers, Radu Gabran, who unfortunately died, was very important for me, and also Copel Moscu, and later Laurențiu Damian, who had, like, Gabra was like, I mean, you want to do a stupid thing. When I was bringing him my proposal, he would have this approach. You want to do something stupid, but do it so you realize it's stupid. So there was a sort of biased freedom that I had. So I did whatever I wanted to do, even if it didn't play by the rules. But when I brought the material, he had the, the integrity to admit that it was something interesting. So this was these, let's say, mentors or teachers, or how you call them, by giving this freedom to fail, offered a very important playground for experimentation. And later, very important, and I recommend, I don't know, Bahoi, if you are interesting to go through such an experience, but I think for my younger colleagues, Aristoteles workshop would be an amazing playground, because that's where I could, I had the freedom, also because of the material, because I discovered digital. I mean, I worked in the film school with digital, but the advantages of digital were fully explored during this month in Aristoteles. That's where I actually explored how it would be to work with reality with the tools of fiction, and the other way around, to implement in a fictional structure the elements of reality. And these kind of workshops and residencies and plays of experimentations, I can only warmly recommend them to the people in development searching for their language. I think it's 7 minutes, but like there are many things to say.
Yeah. But what I would like to address something that you asked related to the to introducing or to including your film in a documentary film selection. It's also something that preoccupies me very much when I think about films. This let's say standard how do you say classifications in which we all separation in which we have many times, because there are, I don't know, a type of films that are usually sold or I don't know promoted as I don't know, being part of a category or another. We have this impression that we know what it is, or that things are very stabilized and I don't know, well theorized, etc., which is not the case, especially let's say with what we call documentary or experimental cinema. Of course, there are some let's say established characteristics that are hard, let's say, to fight with as being specific to documentary, for example. But on the other hand, we also, in my experience, for example, as curator for One World Romania, I discovered a lot of creativity, a lot of approaches that are, I don't know, expand this notion. And I think it's very important to present present them when we are obliged to work with this kind of categorizations, documentary, fiction, experimental, etc., from different reasons, like it happened with me curating a festival that is called like that. At least it's important to address it to the audience, to present them approaches that make them wonder, oh, what is this? And is it important to classify so specific? And it's something that I find very interesting in your approach in general. And this would be one brief question, maybe, if you work with this kind of classifications, because my impression is that you don't necessarily work with when you do your project, I don't know, thinking now I'm going to do a fiction, I'm going to do, but I imagine you are obliged by financing situations to classify them in a way. But beside that,
that's a too long and too specific conversation, the one about financing. But it's true, in the process I actually don't believe there is a border between fiction or documentary or whatever. It's cinema, and it's a subjective way to really like explore a reality in my case, because like not all my colleagues are working with reality. I am really particularly interested in reality. And also an important challenge that I had in exploring reality is to find the right language to transfer this kind of research, process-oriented approach to an audience. So searching for the language is something that preoccupies me, but definitely not the label issue. It's just I mentioned this difficulty with the labels because when we started with Vanina to do this workshop for the students at the documentary master, they came in, most of them with certain expectations about what documentary is. And it was quite a struggle to basically dismantle those expectations, or at least problematize them, raise questions about how you can work with reality. Actually, how can you approach reality in terms of cinematic language? And also the festival that you mentioned, it has been quite a school, because I've seen what colleagues are doing around the world and how immense are the possibilities of working with reality. For example, making found footage films, film from archive, essay films, mixes of different genre and different how do you say, approaches, like fiction mixed with animation. I mean, there are so many like unexpected uses of the cinematic language that I think it's very interesting to problematize that. To also, what you do, I think it's very helpful for the audiences to basically broaden the scope of what the cinematic experience can be.
Yeah, I forgot to say that the festival's name is BF, Bucharest International Experimental Film Festival, and it's a festival that still exists, even though I think you are not as involved as you used to be before, but it's a festival that has already, how many editions? 11 maybe? It's a
10th edition. We are at the 11th edition. I stayed there as a consultant and as a legally responsible, because I'm still legally responsible for everything that happens, but a very talented young team took it over. Oana Ghera and Oana Furda, which I think they are doing a great job. And they are gonna soon, I think I'm allowed to say that now, they are gonna rebrand the festival. It's gonna be Bucharest International Festival of Innovative Cinema, just because actually the notion of experimental gave us so much trouble, because, you know, a notion which is actually about experimenting, it's about searching. This is a term which speaks about films which are experimenting with the language. Well, this term, it's so much charged by the film history that it's perceived just in a certain way. It's a certain aesthetics, which is kind of the monopolized, which is, how do you say, limiting the perception of the world experimental, which is very damaging. You know, I mean, this word limited so much of also our financing and our audience, because the audience has a certain expectation about what experimental is, which was not our intention with the festival. So I think the notion of innovative, like films which are trying to go ways which haven't been so beaten, or which are not at the present moment so beaten, it's more appropriate, even if I have a problem also with innovative, because everything was done before, you know. It's nothing really new on the planet. There are things which are revisited and reinterpreted, this whole postmodernist landscape with quotations and reappropriations and stuff, which is, I think it's a very healthy process. But I think innovative versus experimental, we go for the first.
Yes, Adina, I would have one last question for the moment for you, related to the topic. Don't look at the time. I look at the time. Related to the topics of your films. Because I have this impression that you always choose subjects or I don't know how to say, directions, thematic directions that are provoking also for you. And I think in a film like Touch Me Not, where you include yourself as a character, let's say as a raisonneur, I don't know how to say it in English, of what happens there, it's even more, it's like a very auto-reflexive movie, and it functions very much, for me at least, as a I don't know how to say, exposing this preoccupation that you have with tackling, let's say, topics, subjects, characters, situations that make you as a filmmaker, I don't know, find very specific and proper ways to present them, because they were not well known for you in the beginning. Maybe it always seems like it's a process in which you put yourself in these situations where you don't where you have to handle topics or situations that are very many times discussed or I don't know, exposed in I don't know, in very, let's say, unproblematic matters, or I don't know, in ways how can I say that became like a convention, like a social convention, and we don't tackle them very much. So in many, like, I don't know, like for example in Touch Me Not, of course, sexuality, which is not a very much discussed topic in Romanian cinema, for example, and especially not in so varied ways, for example. But of course also the fact that you sometimes include characters with disabilities, or I don't know, in Touch Me Not you have a main woman character who I don't know, fights depression or middle-age crisis. So in many times I have this impression that your films or the topics that you choose or the way you tackle them become very personal in a way, like problems that you feel the need to address in order that you evolve as a person, not only as a, I don't know, not only as a, it's like a fight with obstacles. I don't know how to say. It's like you don't.
Like the character in the maicării structure, you know, the character has a flaw and it has to evolve. And no, I mean,
not in that way.
To keep it very briefly, like as I told you, I think I already said it a bit earlier that I look at cinema as a process, as a tool to explore reality, to discover things. Like I'm not interested in the other approach where you kind of imagine something that you then and then you make it, you execute it, which is an approach to cinema that I respect very much, but it's not what I'm trying to do. So I am approaching the topics with a sort of wonder, curiosity. It's a common approach to what I'm doing. Yeah, I am interested in them on a personal level, and I suspect that I'm not the only one.
So the fact that you are choosing, because I will pass now to Vanina, which doesn't choose, let's say, this kind of topics, very, I don't know, I would not say taboo, but you know what I mean, like situations or challenging also for the audience. This is like not something that because what you are describing, it would be I don't know, somehow it could be related to any kind of topic, this kind of exploring reality, not thinking about it.
Yeah, there are topics which are definitely challenging for me, like, so it's coming.
This is important for you to have challenge.
Yes, I mean, always, I mean, we have our life, it's so short. And filmmaking requires so much energy. And yes, I put energy, like creative energy, in things that are of huge interest.
I think we have a problem with connection, or just me?
Everybody, you have a huge what? Adina?
I think you had a connection problem.
Am I?
Yes.
Did I?
Yes.
Did you hear me?
Please repeat. Yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
To repeat what?
The last sentence.
So you didn't hear. Oh, so I said that we have such a short time to live, that you know, when I am putting so much energy, like filmmaking requires so much energy and work and heart and flesh and blood, that I put it in things which are which I consider existentially very important. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear me? Briefly.
Yes. So I would thank you, Adina. I would go now to Vanina.
I want just to talk after Adina directly, if you might.
Yes, of course.
I mean, I could say exactly the same thing. I mean, we have such a short time that I explore only things that are extremely important to me, even though maybe it's not as obvious when you see the films, because until now I have hidden myself behind people I have filmed, you know, so behind Stella, behind Joanna and the woman of her family for the film that is screened in this festival, After the Silence. But it's only personal issues, you know. And in my next films, it will be more obvious that I have been digging in a direction that is actually always the same. And now I will put myself a bit more in front in my next films. But we agree with Adina, and I think with lots of people. How can you work? You work with your flesh, with yourself. I mean, I don't see how you can work else. I mean, yes, maybe there are people who are not working like that. We will see with Radu later. But no, but you know, you speak with, I mean, I have the, for me anyway, it was not at the beginning of my journey as a filmmaker. It was not something that I was conscious of it, but starting to looking back on what I have been already digging and exploring and what I'm intending to explore, I have seen a thread, a red thread. I don't know how to say in English, a common, search.
Yeah, but talking about After the Silence, What Remains Unsaid Does Not Exist, the film that was screened in this program in Great Britain, your manner of tackling the reality is very different from Adina's, for example. Like in this case, which is a more personal, let's say, approach, because you are narrating personally, I don't know, the reflections on the situation that you present, and you introduce, the film is about a very good friend of yours who is an actress, Ioana Abur, and at some point her child, her Teona, who is also your goddaughter, how do you say it? Goddaughter. Yeah, she's also part of the film. So and the film, of course, discusses the intimate, how do you say,
repercussion of the big,
let's say of dictatorship, like the communist dictatorship, and of course your reflection and the way you conduct the discussion with Ioana and with Teona go very much in this direction. So I imagine, compared with Adina, for example, in your case, since the beginning you are more focused on a certain direction, let's say, in which you want to conduct the structure, the narrative structure. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because this is I don't know, this is more like in a way an essay kind of structuring, in a way, I think. For example, in this case, in the case of Après le silence, of course, when you started doing these interviews with Ioana, I imagine you already had a very clear structure, or not?
No, at all. No. The film at the beginning was about 4 women in Bucharest. It was with her elder grandmother, and it was not at all about her grandfather of the other side of the family, because I was doing with the grandmother on her father's side, and actually the film is with the woman and the dead grandfather on the mother's side, and the one who went to Canal. So at all, it was another film. I understood that the film will be the film you have seen, that I have edited after 6 years. So it was a very, very, very long process. And the film was supposed to be at the beginning for a long time about her. I mean, it was first about her, women in Bucharest from a family that apparently didn't suffer that much from dictatorship. I was wrong. Then it was, I understood that I had to go to the Canal and to use images that I have filmed 25 years ago with my HI8 camera. And that I had to include myself in the film. Then I understood that the silence was so strong in between all the generations of the family, because that was the way they have survived, by not talking at all, that I had to include really totally myself and to assume that they could only talk with me. Each character of each generation could only talk with me, because they wouldn't talk in between them. And I have staged some moment in between them, and it was very bad. You know, it was directly to the bin, but it was very useful to do it, because I understood that the film was with this character, Vanina, who was going to talk with each of the generation, and the editing will break the silence. So it was a false title. It's not after the silence. After the silence is after the film, when all the generation have seen the film, and then they talked. So it was a very, very long journey to the unknown, and me accepting, and that's what is interesting me as a filmmaker, is to really go where I don't know. If I know where I go, I'm bored and I don't do it. You know, and so this journey took me 7 years until the beginning idea of the idea, and this moment when the film exists. And actually, I understood what you see in the film is only a week of filming, when because I was talking with at a certain point I talked with the mother of Joanna, and she came to me. I wanted to talk with her about communism and everything, and she told me, I was filming, oh, I'm going to go and take the dictionary and everything, and I will tell you what is communism or work or whatever. And I reacted saying, no, please don't. I want to know what you feel. And then I said to myself, fuck, shut up, Vanina, just let her do what she wants and accept her proposal. And she came back with the dictionary. She opened the dictionary and she started to read. And she was very willing to do the things very good for me, her like daughter. And she was well dressed. She had makeup and everything, and she tried to be the good pupil. And while she was reading, all her features were starting to react to this wooden language, limba de lem, and she couldn't stand anymore these words passing through her body. This was the period of her youth, and she couldn't stop, and she couldn't help commenting. And at the end, she was she was not anymore the very polite woman, and she was very rude and commenting. And then she slapped the dictionary and said, I can't anymore. And at this moment, I have realized that the film was there in this space in between with this dictionary, with me proposing some words, and them reading and reacting whatever they wanted to react. And so at this point, I phoned to Joanna and I told her, okay, everything we have filmed is directly on the bin. It's good, it's enriched, it's in us, it's part of what we have lived for this film, but I need a week with you when you want. And this was a year later when she could, a week with you, and we are going to read some definitions. No, and I'm not we're going to read some definition, but I don't want to tell you anything about it, to read the definition of the dictionary. And as she's an actress, she said, okay. She jumped in the proposal without asking why and everything. She knew I had something in the head. And then what you see in the film, it's really maybe four mornings, you know, and me waiting for her to react and for something to happen in the space I had created. So formally, it's me.
So I think for you, it's also, it seems very important that you are doing this on your own, without a big team, so you are filming, you are like the only searcher at the time of filming. And then at the editing, you always work with somebody else, no?
With Melanie, it's very, very important. I have a soulmate. We are a good team.
Yeah. I would have a last question for the moment for you, related also to your experience as a curator, because we had a lot of discussions in the past years about Romanian films that we were receiving, documentaries for the festival. So, but you are coming and probably very much influenced by the big culture of France, no, where there is a lot of diversity and a lot of debates and spaces for exploring what documentary is, etc. Very different, let's say, cultural state, let's say, I don't know, yeah, than here. What was your opinion, or what do you think is the characteristics of Romanian documentaries now, in your view? Yeah.
It's very hard to answer to this. What I can say is that my aim by accepting to working with you in this festival, doing something I have never done, yes, I did it a bit, but not as much, is that I was conscious that there was not a lot of opportunities for Romanian people and, let's say, Romanian filmmakers, young filmmakers, to see something else than HBO. I generalize now, but television or sometimes, yeah, let's say HBO films, you know, to summarize. And so it was very important to me, with one word, Romania, to offer a very big diversity of way of doing, and to make the people meet filmmakers who are really inventing, who are really searching, who are not finding solutions, good solutions, who are very boring, but really listening to the material they are collecting, or and going really to the unknown. And it's a bit what Adina has done in her festival, obviously. But there are never too many festivals, and so. And why was I finding this? I mean, I wouldn't have accepted to do this work in France, for instance, because in France there are really a lot of opportunities to have a to see a wide palette of very different ways of making films. And here it's not the case. And I can see this in the films we have received from the Romanian people. I won't say much more because it won't be nice, but it was really not always very. It was no. Yes.
No, there is. I think what you are saying is that there is a certain kind of conformism, no, in the way they tackle topics and the way they use cinematographic tools to tackle them. And maybe this is also something to do maybe with a certain lack of, or traditional lack of discussing a lot about documentaries, at least in the past decades, compared to fiction films.
And for instance, talking about the workshop we did with Adina, it was very, very interesting to see. There was very few of them, even though there were students. And I don't know, when you are students, you are. I mean, in my perspective, you are more free. You have less fences, and you are willing to explore. And it was not the case, apart from some. I mean, lots of, let's say too much of them were trying to find good solutions and to have a good object, and
like a smooth object, no?
yes, something appealing, and that they would think that people would be interested by, but without really looking at what they want, without taking the time to think at what they want, without taking the time to go explore, confront to reality, decide that maybe their first idea was not a good idea, or it was a good idea because just to understand that actually the path was on that direction, and it's okay, and to really grow in a way, to grow with what they discover. And instead of this, they were reducing everything to a little box. And it was, for me, it was really really despairing, apart from two teams, you know. And you not agree, maybe you don't agree, because you would say 3 teams, maybe.
No, but maybe it's not the case to enter in such details.
No, I think it's, you know, I think each of them had their own journey of there was some opening up in each team, or let's say almost all of them. But yes, like some of them went further in terms of courage, like taking some risks, definitely.
But that's what that's what I have seen in the films. Also, we have received as selector for One Word Romania, you know.
Yeah, but maybe this also has to do, and thank you, Vanina, I would like to go to Radu now. Maybe this also has to do with the way I don't know, the financing system, going back to this lack of serious discussions or debates about what documentary is, or not total lack, but it's not like traditionally after the revolution a very much discussed, if you think about, or much shown, let's say in more generalistic festivals. Very few times you have documentaries, and when you have them, it's more like, I don't know, films that won big awards in festivals. So it's this, and this, I think, also creates for the audience this perception of, I don't know, fiction is very different than documentary. Documentary is that, so if I'm interested in that, I'm going to documentaries. If not, I'm not going. And I think, like Adina's films, for example, but in very different ways, Radu's, let's say, documentaries, essays, are also, let's say, expanding in a way these borders, or if not expanding, let's say, questioning them in a way. So at some point, of course, it's obvious, I don't know, in The Dead Country, or in The Exit of the Trains, it's obvious that you are dealing with very raw, let's say, archival materials, visual, and also from the narration, audio aspect. But they are also, I don't know, in the way, it seems that you have, Radu, a big preoccupation for that, for first of all, for not necessarily thinking in a very how do you say, what is the opposite of broad? How do you say?
Narrow.
Narrow, let's say, consideration for what documentary is, but also at the same time, I think you are one of the very few filmmakers from here who don't seem to feel necessary to make original, let's say, images, like to construct from the beginning, but by constructing a discourse based many times on what others did, like on archival, like, I don't know, like other photographers, like other filmmakers, or reporters, etc. So tell us a little bit about this, about your, let's say, interest in working with archives, for example, and then in constructing this essayistic, let's say, discourses in a way, which are more open than close the discussions about the topics.
Well, first of all, I was thinking when Adina mentioned the fact that she wants to change the name of the festival from experimental to innovative, that it's kind of, well, of course, there's historical causes and the lack of communication between our small culture and other cultures. It's very sad to think that a word like experimental or even innovative, I don't think it will be more successful from this point of view.
You don't think it would help us more?
No. But I think it's really sad that you know, I had the same feeling, the same thoughts while there were quite, well, let's say not necessarily aggressive, but quite very strong reactions against my last feature film, Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, which is accused of many things, being incomprehensible or bad or vulgar or pornographical and so on and so forth. And I was always thinking, oh my God, you know, it's something that was lost here because Romania was the country of the avant-garde in the 20s and 30s. I mean, Tristan Tzara was coming from Romania, and Isidore Isu is coming from Romania. And
they left, they went to Zurich. Huh?
It's true, but still, you know, there was a magazine called Pula, which means cock, right? And so we had a very open direction in visual arts and in literature in the 30s. And well, maybe it's because of the socialist realism of the communist regime, and afterwards about everything else, and before that the fascist dictatorships that somehow suffocated this direction in a way or another. And I think in literature it still exists, it still remained, but in cinema and in other, maybe in other domains that I don't know very much, a little bit in theater maybe, but in cinema for sure it's almost non-existent and almost lost. And I think it's our job in a way to expand a little bit and to make the connection with this tradition which exists. I mean, I had this book made by the Romanian avant-garde. It's amazing number of great artists and writers and poets. Exactly, this one I have. Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge book. We don't hear you. You are on mute, Andrei. Andrei, you're muted.
No, I just wanted to say that I found it was very close to me when you was talking, and I was looking at it. It's 1,700 pages, and it's just with
manifestos and
poetry that was published in Romania, not by Romanian artists abroad. And it's just a brief synthesis.
So so I think, for instance, in my case, the discovery of found footage, let's say found footage or archive materials, or archive footage films, was rather late, because even after the revolution, even after the internet, you didn't find so easy this direction of cinema. For instance, it was 2007. I was in Rotterdam Film Festival with a short film that I ever heard of, Jonas Mekas, and I saw Lost, which was screened at that festival in Cinema Regained section. And it was like, oh my God, why I never knew about these things, you know? So, and because this anyway take a while to sink in your system and to be able to use them or to enrich you in a way. So in my case, this is why then little by little, by my interest in history and so on and so forth, I ended up doing what is called fiction films. And I have also a problem here, because, for instance, a film like I Do Not Care If We Go Down in History as Barbarians, I always have a problem when it's put in the category of fiction film, because of course it is a fiction film. It has actors, it has makeup, sets, I don't know, but the event which is in the center of the film, the massacre of Odessa in 1941, this is not a fiction. So you know, it's always quite tricky. Or a film like Uppercase Print, which is based on the language of Secret Police File, is called in the theater world, because it's an adaptation of what is called documentary theater by Janina Cărbunariu. In theater, it's called documentary theater, even if it's with actor reciting those. So I think it's of course a blurry and complicated line to cross here. But as I said, in my case, is this interest in history, and because I believe, I hope I don't sound too pretentious, that cinema is a way of thinking. So I think in order to think, in order to communicate the thoughts, the ideas, and I'm the one less and less interested in what is called personal cinema. I'm interested in, let's say, what is outside of me and what is before me, and not in my personal, what is commonly called personal cinema. But I think that in my case, whenever I started actually with Aferim to think about how representation process, how complicated it is, especially when it comes to history, but of course in everything else, I discovered that you need a form, that cinema, you need a form in order you have to find a form, or I have to find a form, because I don't have a style that it's, let's say, like a filmmaker like Eric Romer or like Frederick Wiseman, that they have a method, and then based on this method you can make 10 or 100 films or whatever. So and yes, and I still believe that the question of form and finding a form is crucial. And this is, and also maybe this is easy to psychoanalyze, you know, I maybe I'm not good in cinema, so I try to make, I like more films which do not resemble films. So this is why my films are made based, or some of them include photographs, like some very basic elements. It's like a before cinema. It's like a primitive kind of working with images. So it's photograph, it's painting. Sometimes I made a short film now with caricatures of Honoré Daumier. I made a film with toys. I made films with different types of archival images. I made uppercase print which has the words are based on a secret police file. Even in Aferim, most of the words are based on literature from the 19th century. I made Scarhouse, which is all quotes. So it's this process of quoting which I feel very close to, although I don't want to stay only into that. But I think this is, it was like a liberation when you can discover that you can appropriate something. And as I said, it's 100 years after Duchamp, in a way. You know, it's I find it it was a discovery which was very, very late for me, unfortunately. And to end this, why it comes so late, I think that Adina mentioned the film school. Well, I was never admitted in the National Film School, but I can say that I think the problem is even bigger. It's not only the cinema world, Romanian cinema world, including school, film school, and so on and so forth, but I think it's the system of teaching overall. Because even regarding literature, even regarding other things that you studied in school, more or less, it depends, because for instance, I did a high school of computers, so we didn't study very much literature. But even what you studied was in an extremely primitive way of studying it. It was, and I'm not saying this cliche of, well, you know, the pupils had to be creative and so on and so forth. But even what you are taught, the perspectives that you are given regarding all kinds of things, not only arts, but I'm speaking especially about what's so-called art education, literature, painting, whatever. It's extremely primitive and extremely like 200 years ago, at least.
I want to also ask you something about the topics that you choose, because they seem to have certain links. At least the films that were selected in this program that are related in a way to dictatorships or to becomings of dictatorships in the past of Romania, in the Romanian past. And I would like to ask you, if this was something, because many times I have the impressions, or you could have the impressions from the outside, that some of the topics or some of the films you develop them, let's say, while searching for other films that you do. So many times it seems that maybe the continuation is also could be related to that you discover new things that that need another approach, let's say, than the films you are working on, and so you are doing it. But is there also something else related to this preoccupation with let's say lack of democracy or the results for the society or for certain categories or certain different people?
Yes, many people would say. Many people will say it's Soros money behind, and Mossad. Well, it's true what you say, that some of the films were took shape while researching, because working on these historical realities, historical matter, on history, let's say, and researching, of course, at some times you encounter things by myself or with the help of my collaborators like Adrian Cioflâncă, who's a historian, or Constanța Vintilă Ghițulescu, which is also a historian, and you find things and you discover that, well, for instance, while I was doing the Barbarians film, I did the Dead Nation because I found all these materials, and all of a sudden I had the idea I can make a small film without a big budget to reflect on those topics. And something else, you asked me if there is, apart from my interest in this topic, I think it's the fact that, without trying to differentiate myself, or I don't know, I think it's the fact that in the new Romanian cinema, but also in the cinema of the 90s, and of course what was before, no necessary to mention that, I think a certain past and a certain connection between some problems of the present with this forgotten past and hidden past and discrete past, like the fascist past of Romania, or the different types of fascisms of Romania, and their strong connections with the present. These topics are not touched by most of the Romanian filmmakers, which, well, they make wonderful films, great films, which sometimes are about, they are, let's say, more metaphysical, or maybe social sometimes, or psychological, which is, I think, great. But I'm not able to, not only am I not able to do this kind of things, but I see the world, I'm more interested in history than in metaphysics, and I'm more interested in politics, let's say, than in psychology. Politics in a very broad sense. So I think I felt, well, not like a duty, because of course it would be too much, but I said, well, if nobody makes a film about Marshal Antonescu's time, I should do it because I'm interested, and nobody else would do it. Or a film about the slavery of the Gypsies' time, which is, I think, one of the roots, if not the main root of the racism of today and of the problems of integration of the Roma population. So I think it's also this, because probably if they would have been, when I made these films, people attacked them saying, oh, another film about Holocaust, but there are so many of them. And I said, oh, where are them? Let's say they would say Schindler's List, or I don't know. I said, yeah, but these are about other topics. It's not about the Romanian involvement into that. So I think it's that. I think it's we should, as filmmakers, cover the well, not as a programmatical thing, but when you see a film like the last film of Adina, although it's not completely what we can call a Romanian film, but it's really, I think, important, even if you appreciate the film or not, I'm not speaking about this, is the fact that she has in front of the camera another type of characters, of realities, of people that you never saw before in a film from Romania, you see. I think that's important for me, and I think now, to be honest, that this can happen, well, in different ways. It's I really appreciated the film like Acasă, My Home, I think is the English title, because somebody made a film about a reality that I didn't know it before. And I really appreciate the films of Bahoi, which I know them since 2008. I'm sure I remember, I think the first one I saw Bahoi stealing the queens or something like that. I don't know. Because it's somebody that makes a film about a reality, and in a way and with a courage that you don't see in others in Romania. So Well, I think this is what I what I believe.
Before going to Bahoy and talking with him about his videos, about his films, I just want to ask you briefly something else about what you were describing already about the sources, the visual sources of the films, because many times you use archives or photos that are not well known, or sometimes they are not even, that they were not made with an artistic purpose, like for example the photos from exit of the trains. Some of them, I think they are from different sources, but also from official dossier, how do you say, official files. In uppercut print you have a lot of footage from different kinds of
from national television,
from TV shows, which were not necessarily, you know, considered art or discussed as art. And even in your new film, in Bad Luck, Banging, or Looney Porn, in the middle part of it, where you have a lot of videos from YouTube or from, I don't know, from the internet, which you recontextualize. So you seem to have a lot of attention to what we called popular, for one side, what we call popular culture in a way, but also for recontextualizing, I don't know, this kind of official archives, with artistic purpose, or in an artistic context. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about this, about at what point you consider, because you are also describing that you admire Bahoi's films, for example, at what point you think that on sources like YouTube or TikTok, I don't know, there are a lot of nowadays there are a lot of mediums for putting very I don't know, raw, let's say, videos by different people. They are art, or they could be art without recontextualizing them in a film.
Well, you know, I think it's of course it's maybe the most crucial question for us, and I'm still under the influence of a great book I read, which was translated in Romanian 15 years ago. It's called Kant After Duchamp, by a Belgian historian of art called Thierry Doduve. And he speaks a lot about the revolution in thinking that Duchamp's ready-made made in the history of art, in the philosophy of representation and of what art is, with his simple putting objects in an exhibition and saying this is art, you know. But apart from that, I have a more simple approach for me, because, well, I'm speaking about cinema, not about art in general. For me, cinema, because as I said, is a way of thinking. For me, cinema is everywhere, and I don't make this distinction. Of course, I can see a film, a fiction film with the eye fit for that, and I can see a YouTube material with another eye, and I can see a photograph from another point of view. But for me, because I'm making cinema and I'm interested in cinema, everything becomes cinema. And to give the best example for that, I think I just read a book about Eisenstein. And Eisenstein used to have his bookshelves organized, not like we would organize the bookshelf, you know, by alphabetical order of the authors or of the books, or by topics like, I don't know, literature or mathematics, history, I don't know. He made he had the library or the bookshelves organized on montage principles. So he would have a book of Ulysses close to Alice in Wonderland, and he would have a book of Napoleon, a biography of Napoleon, close to a book about anomalies in biology, this kind of thing. So I think it's it really is important that this way of thinking, if you think, let's say, about cinema and thinking about cinema as a way of reflecting about the world, can be in anything. and it can be in how you put two photographs together, how you can see a advertisement of the street on the street, or how can you see a YouTube video or a TikTok video or a soap opera on television or the news or whatever it is. So I don't make, from this point of view, any differentiation between them.
I think Adina lost the connection. I was looking at that, but let's hope.
Or she got bored by endless discussion.
No, thank you, because I really wanted to go to Bahoi, who is the first time, I think, in this kind of a panel with, let's say, recognized filmmakers who I don't know, whose films were selected in festivals, and whose the formats that your films are in, you know, resemble the kind of formats that nowadays most of the festivals seem to associate with documentary, and I don't know, in different ways, but from one way or the other, not many times the kind of films that Bahoi does are included or seem to be included together with other types of documentaries. Bahoi, are you with me? Do you hear me? Yes. You open your microphone, please, so that we can discuss. So thank you. Yes.
Now it's good.
It's good. So thank you, first of all, for being with us today. Your videos, your films are very different from many perspectives. If we start from a financial, let's say, perspective, they are very different because they are made with your phone, with no production costs, by yourself. You are the one who also put them on YouTube immediately, in a very short time after you shot them. And what I forgot to say in the beginning of the discussion when I presented all of you is that you are also one of the, let's say, first vloggers, at least in Romania. So your first also there is some noise there, I think. They were also put online in a period where there were not so many. I think you influenced a lot of other vloggers from Romania to do that. So, but of course you are still doing it. You are still filming. You are still putting videos on your channel. So the selection reflects a little bit all the periods, but most of them are from the beginnings of let's say, your vlogging. I want to ask you if you remember about the start, when you started, how and why you started doing this in a period where it was not so fashionable, let's say, already to do it. And was it, I don't know, was it because you, I don't know, you wanted to share to the world the people that you loved or the people that you spent time with, or why?
There is no why. În artă nu te justifici. Pur și simplu s-a întâmplat că toată lumea...
Bahoi, in English.
In English. I forgot. It's because the reason I'm filming is just because how the universe flows. You know, everybody, even as we speak now, it's just, we think we are in control of what we do, but it just happens with the flow of universe and we are just vibrating. And I use Adina's words, we are now alienated. Just talking and talking, it just happens how it happens. And everything everybody talked, for me it was like this, and I was not connected. I don't know why. So there is no reason why. It's just I wanted to show to the world, how to say, another world that everybody lives in. And I wanted everybody to see that there is also cinema of a reality, like Jude said, you know, reality and all the stuff like that in the real world. And I wanted to expose everything for everybody to see. There is also this kind of cinema, a simple cinema. And the reason I really do it, I wanted maybe some crazy director who, how do you say, says, okay, Bahoi, come with me, let me follow you. I direct and I do everything. You just show me the light. That's the real reason I filmed, and then it's difficult to be bahoi in these times because it influences everything about your life. To film all this weird stuff because everybody wants cinematic and all this stuff, it's difficult to digest my kind of videos because they are too real, and people are used to see cinematic things and more organized, but not the flow of reality. And they're like,
But when you started, you were already considering them, let's say, not in a tradition of cinema.
No, not really a tradition.
They seem to be, and what I appreciate a lot about them is that they don't seem to take themselves so seriously in a way. I mean, many times, like for example, in one of the videos that I selected, which is called, I think, Bahoi Dances with a Girl, at some point, you have this technical problem and the sound stops, and you still put that film online. So this didn't, because probably it was more important, the energy in the video, and I don't know, the immediacy, I don't know how to call it, the spontaneity, let's say, of it.
Everything was with a purpose.
Yeah.
I have this, yes, everything I do, I already know behind my mind that everything I do is with the purpose. I just know about it, but this is the touch. I'm giving touches to the videos that I make. I purposely do the things, and
But
stuff like it.
I imagine there are some videos that you don't post, or you post everything that you do.
Mostly, I think 99% I post. Rarely, maybe with the family I don't post and stuff like that. But the rest I post everything. And what I wanted to show that, how they say, to somehow teach, but people are afraid to do these kind of videos, that you can also do great cinematic things. And I even went working for 3-4 hours to cinema. And about Romanian cinema, I don't criticize Romanian cinema, but what I see behind, even in America and everywhere in the world, that people are more focused on drinking coffee and more when they do movies, they are more focused on the set, and they don't give that energy of reality, of the emotion. It's difficult to give a natural emotion, like they're like actors, they're doing forced emotions just to give that to the people, to stimulate that. But you understand what I mean? I went to cinematic place just to work for a few hours, and then I've seen the director, the heat, this, that, but the art itself, the acting itself, it's poor, and that's what people are focused, and the director are like overdosed by this, what they see behind, and they cannot focus on the movie itself, and that's why it's difficult to boost a good movie.
This is something hard. It's hard to generalize because it also has what I think you are describing is a certain kind of making cinema.
I'm teaching people
with a big team, and I don't know, fiction with actors, etc. And not everybody is doing the same kind of cinema out of many reasons. Sometimes financial, sometimes because of artistic choices, or I don't know, the specific of materials that they are working with. But yes, it's true that in your videos there is a certain kind of energy, or what you were calling like a certain kind of
reality.
Yeah, but it's a reality in which you interfere in a way, because you are, most of the times in these films, you are provoking the characters in front to do certain things, or you ask them questions, so it's like, and what is very particular and what is very touching about most of them is that they are familiar with you, because they know you very well, probably.
No, because I filmed in Bucharest also, then nobody knows me. I filmed the whole Boschetar from Bucharest.
But now let's focus a little bit on the films that people in Great Britain were able to see, to watch, so on this program. I'm talking about these mostly.
The past movies.
Sorry?
The past movies.
Yeah, but there were also two that were new, but they were also
I like what Jude had the courage to do about when he talked about Marshal Antonescu. It's good to expose that, that's a good vision, because he brings back to life the past, and that's a good vision. That's a strong movie about the Nazis and about this Holocaust. It's very important for people to learn
Yeah, but you are not doing your films, or you are doing your films also with a social and political purpose.
Somehow, yes, because I'm trying to teach people to not avoid this poverty, because people have power to help. You know, like I'm also doing this movie, but maybe some people say, ah, let's help these people. They're poor. Let's do something for them, and also as that, and also for myself to become someone. But it's difficult to become someone, so I just flow with the universe. I just give to the world, because there are many people who tell me they're so happy. They're sitting and watching movies, not movies, videos. That's why sometimes I film long movies, and they eat chips and they say, ah, let's me watch bahoi, because it's like drama, smile and trauma, the wisdom of trauma, something like that.
This is also something. Yeah, this is also something particular, I think, about many of your videos. The fact that they are very humorous. I don't know, comical.
Yes, humor and drama. Humor and drama. It's a dark humor, but it's a real humor.
And this seems to be something important for you to approach this kind of reality that many times it's approached, let's say, from people from the outside of the community. Many times, no, they don't necessarily tackle it in a comical way, or I don't know. Many times it's more like a description of poorness, which you also sometimes do. Like, for example, in this, what I don't know what was the English translation of it, but in Ziua Lumii, the birthday
in the day of the world,
you have some, and in many videos you have these moments when you show poverty, and people are making fun or mocking their own poverty in a way. But I don't know. I would say that the main touch of the films or of the videos, it's more light. It's like you are having fun together about something, about your lives. Why is it important for you to approach it in a humorous way, let's say, or in a more light way?
Because sometimes there is a different, how do you say, this like we are living in two different worlds. The educated people are smiling in a way, the poor people are smiling in another way. That's why we make fun, just to de-traumatize ourselves from what we live in, because it's a constant trauma and drama and difficult life, and then we just laugh about ourselves just to be happy.
And it's also a way in which you think that educated people, let's say, to enter in your description, in your approach, it's more easy to approach these people that you are filming. It's also a way of approaching this world, or not necessarily?
No, not to approach this world, but where most of people are happy with what they have. That's also a reason to put my videos, because there are so many people who let's say there is no time for having depression and all this kind of stuff if you live poor. So it's like you becoming rich with your soul if you are poor somehow, because you don't have time, because life gives you so many things, and then you don't have any time for trauma and stuff. You are just focused, and I'm trying to give this vision to the world, and then they can see, look how fucked up they are. And then we are like, if our internet connection is lost, we become crazy, and many other kind of flows. And people who are reading too many books, they're also, I think, in my mind, that somehow, like you, they're becoming a little bit crazy, because I don't know why, but in my vision, I don't know, too many books, you know.
Crazy in what way? What do you mean? I mean, you can be crazy in many ways.
Crazy, like how they say, it shows in my vision, not that you're people who are reading so many books. I think it's not about being educational. I think they are just, how to say, somehow lonely, and they're just hiding this to another universe, and they are connected with some ghosts, you know, and they talk with the ghosts.
On the other hand,
in my vision, and it's also educational. Yes, it's not.
But on the other hand, the way, like the type of filmmaker or of videoist that you are, that you know that films, let's say, realities from that you know very well from the inside. If you would have a project, for example, like about I don't know, placed in another period, or about a situation, or how do you say, a context that you don't well know, how would you describe it without trying to understand it? And many times you don't have access to the people who lived that reality, so you have to learn it from somewhere, from books, from So I think it's also, it depends on what kind of a filmmaker or of artist you are, no? Because not, you couldn't, I don't know, like make the film about Antonescu without reading anything about him. I mean, you could, but it's very possible that you would share some very big misinformations about that period, no? I mean...
Yeah, but that's logic what you say. I would logically not read books, but I would have an assistant to tell me things about it, and I would watch movies. I never read a book in my life, I think.
Yeah.
Not even one. I have lots of books, but I don't know. I think they influenced me or somehow.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's also, I told you, the videos, I purposely do them and I just film them. It's very hard for my life, you know, for myself, you know, people, oh, crazy bahoi, oh, this, like that. But most of people are helped because they sit there. They're not just clicking next.
Mm-hmm.
Because art in nowadays, people confuse art, like the more popular you are, the more quality you are. But it's not that, you know, like Vanina, she does all kinds of movie, but maybe she's not so popular, or whoever is not popular, it doesn't mean they're not qualified. Like there are many artists who are very good at singing, but they're not exposed. Same as me or many others, they're not exposed. And that's why sometimes I look for the director who says, Bahoy, I'm doing whatever the hell you want. I'm following you. Let's do this and that. And I would show people with my eyes what I see. And then they see, what the fuck, you know? Somehow it helps because that's what universe makes me do. And that's what universe makes you do, and everybody, and so on.
I would have another question, a last question for the moment for you, about if you are interested in doing films also in other formats or in other, I don't know, like a more traditional, or not traditional, like I don't know, feature films or films with teams, with you know, like the more conventional type of.
Logic.
So it's something that it also interests you, but I imagine this is something very hard to do in a context like this. No, when you are.
It's not hard. You just need a crazy human being to say, "Ho, bahoy, hi, let's do it." Like I would say to Adina Pintili, I would tell her if she is more into science fiction, she should do a Romanian gypsy science fiction movie, which doesn't exist in the whole world. Maybe, I think so. With very poor people, but then it's a very scientific movie. And also Lujude with how do you say, with Marshal Antonescu is very good because he touches, and many gypsies would be connected and they say, it's very nice. How, you know, it's good to teach people history because then you put the racism a little bit down and so on.
Well, he did already Aferim, which is related with
Da, Marshal, cum să zic eu, mai stimulent pe viziune. Nu m-am uitat la Aferim, dar am auzit de Real Negru, parcă.
So I will translate what you are saying. You said that it should be more stimulant, how do you say, you know, as a vision. So I would so Bahoy, thank you very much. I would have one last question for the other guests. Really a last question related somehow with your type of films or with the medium in which you are doing the films. In what way, Vanina, Adina, Radu, you already talked a little bit about this, but maybe you want to develop more. You are interested in other types of formats or mediums, not formats, like not necessarily doing videos for YouTube, but maybe installations or other types of new media. In what way they are an expansion, let's say, or related to cinema, or you consider them to be completely different, I don't know, mediums, and because of that they are maybe made by people with different kinds of interests than yours for the audiovisual medium? Vanina?
We have lost.
I think she has a bad connection. She will come back. She wrote me that she doesn't hear what we are talking for the past 10 minutes, unfortunately. Adina.
Okay. So can you repeat?
I was wondering if this kind of films vlogs and I don't know, other kinds of new media installations or other kinds of using audiovisual material in other types of formats beside the ones that are more standardly considered documentary or films, are of any interest for you as an artist, or if you consider them something else, totally else than those formats that are more traditionally associated with cinema?
As an artist, they are interesting me. I mean, yes, I look at them, I nourish myself with them. Obviously, I really don't like, I'm a bit like Adina and maybe Radu. I don't like to categorize things, really. Putting things in boxes is always problematic to me. So no, obviously, it's really enriching, like everything in life, like a book, like a good evening with great friends. It depends, you know. I'm feeding myself with a lot of things, and I'm not excluding if it happens to be the right way of exposure to myself put something on internet because I want to skip the financing journey, or I don't know, to go into a museum and make something else. Yes. So it would depend of what I'm working on, and the best way it has to be shared with the public. So yes, I'm relatively open to this.
Okay.
And you,
Radu, I don't know if you have time, 2 or 3 minutes to reply to that.
Well, of course, I think it's just first of all a question of definition. It's now always bahoi is doing video blogging, and somebody's doing video art, somebody's doing documentary, somebody's doing cinema, somebody's doing television. But as I said, for me, everything it's connected, and I consider video art also a form of cinema, or the other way around, if you want, as I consider literature also a form of cinema, and cinema a type of literature. So I don't like to make this, let's say, differentiation that much. Of course, we need it for practical reasons, like short film, feature, long film. I don't know what is a short film. Sometimes a short film is less than 10 minutes, other times less than 15, less than 30, less than 60. It's a bit ridiculous because it doesn't matter, you know. And what's a feature film? What's a long film? But what I of course, strongly believe it's like that when you take images from one system where they are created and move them into another system, because this is what I did all the time. For instance, I'm doing now a short film, actually 30 minutes film with Adrian Cioflâncă, which is based on he found a great document, I think, a photo journal, a photo album of a Romanian regiment on the Eastern Front. So you have access to not only military information, visual information, but also to the representation, to how these military people, how this unit wanted to be perceived, wanted to be remembered, what they wanted to show. And of course, we took these photographs from this album, we shot them, and we moved them into a different type of remontage, let's say, like in France, like a re-editing of this. And this is, I think, a very important operation. And yeah, I wanted to point out this operation of re-edit, of remontage.
Probably related to what you were saying in the beginning, probably the way we perceive these very different kinds of video art, let's say, it's related also to the places where they are shown, because when you get them from YouTube and you put them in a film festival, suddenly you have, as a spectator, you relate them to the other parts of the selection, so you compare it with that. When you put it in a museum or in other kinds of it becomes, it's approached from some other perspective, etc. So yeah, it's
and I must say that, as I told you personally, but I want to say it publicly, that I think it's really great that you put Bahoi's films into this, because we all know also that Romanian cinema is a bit, let's say, classist and centered on Bucharest, more or less. So I think it's great that somebody like Bahoi, who's from another city and from another, let's say, class, like most of the film world, he's a little bit outside of the film world. I think it's great that he's brought inside and where his place is and should be, I think. So I really think that's a great and very generous and important gesture that you did.
Yes, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest, that it's the first time that they are screened with subtitles in a festival, because I don't know, they were very popular, and some of them, they are still very popular, but maybe not for the part of audience that matter for the festivals. I don't know what's the explanation, because as I was saying, some of them have millions of views. When I go with Bahoi on the street, he's really, really shockingly famous for many young people. So yeah, maybe it's also part of the mainstream concept of what should be part of a festival. So for that, I also want to thank, I think we need to stop now. Unfortunately, Adina has a problem with the connection, and I think she will not be able to join us, in time for replying to this question. But yeah, I want to thank very much to all of you for accepting the invitation, this dialogue, and I also want to thank Magda Stroye for inviting me to make this selection, and also for accepting the program without hesitations, because it's not, and it's a problem that I have more and more in my life here in Romania. It's not necessarily a program made for wide audiences. So in a way, it contains some very, very particular and, how can I say, yeah, visions, like a very not all the time is very easy to relate to if you are not necessarily a cinephile, or you are not interested in cinema. And I think it's important to show also, when we do programs for Romanian cinema, to not be afraid to also show let's say the visionaries, without thinking necessarily about putting some comedies, or I don't know, some more conventional structures and narratives, just out of I don't know, not trusting these more radical, let's say, approaches. So thank you again, and hope to see you soon, all of you soon. Bye.